Howdy everybody, how y'all doing? Welcome to the Ice House. We try to keep things cool, calm, collected, and mostly a bit chill. Well, first off, I just want to start by addressing the metaphorical elephant in the room, because I don't see any elephants around here, and hopefully, unless you work for a circus, you don't have an elephant, in your house either, or in your room. Now, unless it's one of those cool wooden carved, elephants, or maybe one of those stone carved elephants that it's a bigger elephant that's carved into a cage and there's a little elephant inside, because the ones that are handmade are really, really cool. And really cool, like I said, artistic, and I can get behind that. And I know you can get those at souvenir shops anywhere, right? So, those are pretty cool. But once again, I digress, right? Because, well, the truth is I was feeling a little sick. I think I had a lot of allergies that got me down, and I can't tell if it was bad food or food allergies compounding with a few other things that kind of felt like my face was melting. Maybe I was overheating, or maybe my sinuses were kind of going on full blast, if you will, right? So I wasn't quite able to get the video done and edited before all of that happened, and so once I woke up from my potential fever dream, I decided to see if what I was thinking made any sense, and well, now here we are, because I guess we're gonna find out if my pondering, let me know down in the comments if this makes sense, or if I should have, gone back to bed for a little bit longer, right? So, without further ado, what kind of got stuck in my head is, well, I don't know about you, but I remember when I was a kid, elementary and junior high, especially by junior high, we started doing these compare and contrast essays in school, and I think the point of them is good. It's the idea that you get to take two things, decide how they're like, how they're different, and a lot of times, it seems as we grow up, we learn that we have to choose which one's better, which I don't think is necessarily true in all cases, because not everything's a 1-to-1 ratio, but it tends to happen, right? And like I said, I think this is good for communication and understanding, but in light of the fact that they say that Americans have a 5th grade reading level, and then to prove that, we had that TV game show, Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader? Right? And then, you might be a redneck if you know what I'm talking about, then you know. But in light of all of that evidence and more, I've come to the conclusion that I think, in general, our society has simply been stunted at that point, right? The compare and contrast, right? Not trying to decide, not learning if something's better, or adapting and overcoming, or adding different things to our skill set necessarily, which I know people kind of do on some small level, but I know people are tired of hearing the word paradigm, but sometimes you do need a paradigm shift to kind of expand and understand things a certain way, or let certain lines of thinking get set aside because maybe they're not helpful anymore, right? As you go from being a kid to an adult and learning how there's certain, different ways of looking at things now that we're old enough to get it, maybe. And I know people are tired of the word juxtaposition, but I think it's also really important, and like I said, paradigm and juxtaposition are probably overused, because people just want to have the word salad and say big words, and it kind of takes a $50 word and makes it look like a $10 word. But in context, I think they still have value, right? But today, I kind of want to talk about how people tend to juxtify, right? Juxtafication plus justify means juxtify their belief systems. in the sort of rudimentary stunted of, this is who I am, this is what I am, this is what I want to be. And if you don't agree with that, or if you're just different than that and you do things in a different way and you want something else out of life, you're probably wrong, and I need to tell you that. Because I need to justify why my life is better and prove it to me, especially. Right? Because and I find it interesting because when it comes to certain business models, right? Certain advertisements, there's a lot of these, be an individual, have it your way, do what you like, until somebody has a product that nobody's interested, because inevitably, not everybody is interested in every product, but sometimes businesses think that because they put something out there, it means everybody is their target audience, which, we all know that's not true, but for some reason, if you don't like something, it's okay until nobody likes it and they're not making money, and, well, then the tagline goes right out the window, right? So, yeah, there's some truth in advertising, just doesn't always apply when, you're counting the money. But, so, along that lines, right? There's a whole thing of, well, maybe you've kind of heard about it, and, we're kind of getting into some of the juxtaposition now, and juxtifying things now, but there's that whole issue with Visa and MasterCard recently that claim that they've been, inspired by a group of women in Australia to shut down adult content, video games on Steam and some other websites. And, well, whether you like or agree with adult content, that's not my point. My point in talking about this is that there's some people who don't like something that exists, and because they don't like it that it exists, they're appealing to the power of the purse, right? The people who pull the strings, because, let's face it, in a world that is, digital, and so much of our transactions are on digital formats, right? It's hard, we don't really carry hard cash, and even when we do go out and go to brick and mortar, a lot of time we're paying with our credit card or whatnot. So, these guys, Visa, their whole tagline was everywhere you want to be when I was a kid. But it's kind of starting to be like everywhere we think you should be if people like it well enough will allow you to buy it, right? Which is, again, not the tagline that they're actually going to say, because it's too honest, right? It's everywhere you want to be, with a caveat. So, you have this thing, like I said, Savvy put out a good video on it, and then a lot of other people are talking about it, because what it comes down to is, when they're the only people who, the only game in town, and you have to use the banks to make a transaction, Steam and all these other companies would be, dead in the water if they didn't have access to this whole World Bank thing, right? And, that's where the issue lies, because this isn't the first time we've seen it. Now, we saw this, some of the big ones were when you had Eric July, whether you like the guy or not, right? You had him, he was trying to use a crowdfunding thing, and some people complained, and so they froze all the assets, and so, he couldn't do anything. So then he decided that he would make his own company so that people could pay him directly, and, like I said, whether you like it or not, and I'm not trying to talk about are they good comics or, anything like that, I'm saying he was able to build a business that allowed people to pay him directly, and therefore, I would say it's a functional business, because they keep on putting out comics, they keep on getting authors and artists to work with them for new projects, and they seem to be expanding and like I said, doing what they say they do on time, and people are paying money for it. So like I said, it's not about whether you like it or not. It's not about whether the people in Australia like it or not. It's about the functionality and the legality of it, and just because somebody doesn't like it doesn't mean it shouldn't be allowed to exist, right? I mean, and then we get into things like charity, because we saw this happen when there was a whole trucker thing in Canada, and I'm just still talking about it loosely, even though we could probably say all the words now, that, well, people were trying to use certain online crowdsourcing websites, and then the powers that be decided that, well, we don't support that cause. We're not going to let you send money to those people that might be in need because of things, and, you know, moral high ground and all this stuff. And so therefore, again, the assets got froze. They got, I think they all got put back and stuff. People eventually got their money back, but they found a way to get the money, to donate it, to get to the people that needed it, right? Or they believe that needed it. And, you know, eventually, you know, Will finds a way, right? And I know that I talked about like I said, I don't think there was any embezzlement or mismanagement of the money. It was just more, well, I could say mismanagement about not letting it go through, but they just denied the payments. People got it back and were upset, but figured out how to deal with it, right? I mean, I know I talked about the VShojo meltdown and some of the farm aid stuff in my PSA on Friday, right? Which I think, once again, getting back into the juxtaposition, you know, of things and justifying your behavior when you have the whole VShojo meltdown, kind of like my brain did yesterday, that, you know, there was mismanagement and there was funds that weren't going to where they were directly, you know, specified, and it wasn't, the credit card companies had nothing to do with it not going through, as far as I understand, right? And the farm aid stuff, or the fire aid stuff, when the funds went to specific places that didn't seem like they were the places that really needed the funding, and so you have this weird place where people's opinions of, we don't like that person, we don't like what they're doing, so therefore they shouldn't be allowed to use the funding, when at the same time you have people who are taking money, claiming it's going somewhere, claiming it's going to donate, or you know, for some relief fund or what have you, and then the money doesn't go there. Now, with VShojo, I think there are some legal ramifications of, you know, not paying your talent and not paying all that stuff out, right? For sure. But there's also a bunch of organizations that tend to, if you look at certain bylines, they talk about how much you have to dig for it, but you can see that a lot of the money goes to paying their own officers and paying themselves, and eventually it might go to somebody in need, right? And those can be complained about, but it may also not be illegal what they're doing necessarily if they, you know, they show it outright somewhere. But at the same time, why should these people that are just scamming money or trying to rip people off, good-hearted people off, because, well, they want to look out for other people, or, you know, they're allowed to take people's money and keep it, and yet somebody who has a business model that you don't like, that somebody doesn't like, that's selling things that, well, somebody complains about, they shouldn't be allowed to have transaction, right? I don't understand the fundamental juxtafication, there I said it, of these two courses of actions and lines of thinking, because they're not really congruent with each other. It's very much at the top down juxtafication of, we have the power and this is how we want to use it, and, you know, we can do things to shape the world around us because who's else gonna do it, right? And it just, I don't have an answer for you, but I just find it very curious that, well, we have these different ideas or even paradigms that are trying to be molded together, you know, for juxtafied, I'll say it one more time, but You know, it's not even a juxtaposition anymore. But you don't have to take my word for it, because, you know, I'm just a punk, right? See what I did there? Anyway, that's really all I've got today. I'd love to hear your comments and thoughts, because I know this is going to be an ongoing conversation on a lot of fronts here, and so, like I said, it's a lot to ponder, but I think the conversation definitely needs to continue, and this time I wanted to say something a part of it, so let me know what you think, and if you want to like or subscribe or share it out, that'd be awesome. And so, yeah, well, try to look out for each other and take care of yourself, and until next time, I'll see you later. Bye!